Hi, India. We're going to take a look at your first film, offer some specific feedback here. So we'll go ahead and share screen and get to watching. Now I'm going to stop and start a little bit here. So that way you'll know. So that was a very good, they're very close to the Fincher-esque kind of style. Now that we've kind of gone through that a little bit, you'll be able to pick up on that, and in the future when you're doing moves like that, be able to do it even more accurately, or be able to do it even more sort of succinctly as you have the move here. You did it instinctively, which is kind of cool, right? There, you wouldn't have to have cut. You could have just followed the move, which I think would have had more impact on it. Maybe even a slightly different angle where it was coming at you. The idea is that it's he sort of putting it forward on you there. So anyway, but it was instinctual that you did the follow there. I think that's kind of neat. Also, in the beginning here, what you're doing is you're moving the camera on things that don't move, which again is showing a stability, but then you're sort of observing. The camera itself is sort of um, almost like a surveillance style camera, because the camera is there, very minimal movement, which shows it's sort of not exactly mechanical, but not exactly handheld either. So it introduces a really unique style. That's what I mean. And you're using a long sort of shot there, which is contributing to that shake. Be wary of using a lot of different focal lengths. In other words, having your camera zoomed out and then zoomed in and then zoom middle and out and in. Try to choose maybe two at the most, and then using one mostly, and then using that second one just as an accent. Most filmmakers will sort of rely on a single focal length lens, and to get closer and get farther away, they literally move the camera closer and farther away in order to get those kinds of shots. When you start to introduce multiple focal lengths into the scene, it can kind of feel a little schizophrenic. Now, that might not be a bad thing if you're introducing that concept to a piece, but I don't think that's what you were trying to do here. So bear that in mind as you're choosing your focal length, as you're framing things up. Think to yourself, can I get closer to frame this up rather than zooming in to change my focal length? Changing focal length changes the nature of the image. It changes the nature of depth of field. It changes the optics of it. And so having a multiple focal lengths is not a typical thing that filmmakers do. I would choose one. Personally, I use two. I use 24 and I use 55. Those are the ones that I happen to use a lot. Other filmmakers have others that they use. So you can sort of limit yourself to those. See how your film ends up looking when you limit yourself to particular focal lengths. Again, that would have been, really interesting to be able to pick up on that Fincher-esque style. We're going to be working on that for Films 3. So, I'm looking forward to what you do with that. With that. I really think it's great that your dad's able to participate in this, that he's really, he's investing in your work, and that's great. I mean, he's portraying himself, and opening himself up to this, and I think that's really important. I hope I'm able to meet him one day and thank him for being so supportive of your work. Your whole family, as a matter of fact, it's great that you have that kind of support. So I think here's an opportunity. What you're doing is effectively you're showing the public, right? You're showing what's happening out there. Now, you're sort of showing almost this emptiness, this sort of like no one's here. Everything is just empty, and I think that's fine. But I think that the examples, to give the examples of people out there, here you have a woman isolated with a mask on. There's nobody around her, and she's wearing a mask. It kind of says something about what's going on. Be sure that is, in fact, apologize. Says something about what's going on there. Be sure that's what you want to say, that she's isolated, yet she's wearing a mask at the same time. Know that that's saying something different than I'm trying to make myself safe. You know what I mean? What does that communicate there? I do think we have maybe too many cuts that are starting to happen. We have a lot of shots, and I think you might start to think about sort of refining and minimalizing. What would be a better word than minimalizing? Maybe being more efficient. That would be the word. Maybe being more efficient with your shots, so you don't have to cut as much. You're creating a really quiet piece here. And I think to reinforce that even more, if you are able to frame your shots so you don't have to cut, so you can, do a very small pan to be able to do the same thing as a cut. Or maybe frame it up so you can get the entire thing in the shot. Things like that. Fewer cuts will create, again, that stillness. It'll create that room that you're going for, this real quietness, this real isolation kind of feel. So I think we're getting into a lot of different cuts, from him walking down the hall, the reverse shot, he's walking through the corridor, we got the close-up, we got this other shot. All of that's kind of cool shots. I like that you're using the variety, but I think we're getting, in contrast to the content that you're portraying, maybe streamlining it a little bit more would have been a way to go when you're dealing with this kind of subject matter. All of it has to do with prep. You know what I mean? I know you're prepping this a lot. You're thinking about what you want to do. You're mapping it out. But when we're talking about the connecting form and subject to the content, how many shots you do, or when you're in the editing studio, when you're there and you're putting it together, that's when you're deciding, are these cuts contributing to the content, what I'm trying to communicate here. Okay, so that and maybe I'm wrong. I'll have to go through a very fine-tooth comb, but that is a crossfade. There. Is that the first time we see a crossfade? I'll have to go back and check it out. If so, it kind of crept up on me there. Is that the only crossfade that we have? If so, it's a punctuation point. And maybe we needed to linger on that crossfade a little bit more. Maybe it needed to go, instead of a crossfade, faded to black and then came up again, or something like that. Yeah, that was something that as I'm looking here, that I just noticed, like, huh, a crossfade. There we have that fade to black. I'm almost convinced now that maybe this would have been better as a crossfade. I mean, as a fade to black here, go to black and then come back up to this, because then you go back to black again. Yeah, I'm thinking that that would have been much more elegant to go fade it to black, bring it up to the standing in the window here, and then fade back to black again. I think that would have worked. More power to that one. So this one again, not again, but this here, we probably could have shortened the clip again. These are all really, you know, nitpicky points, but it's all about editing, right? Just kind of tightening things up. So here we have on this shot here, he's just sort of starting. I think we could have met it on the action right here. The clip could have started right there, saving maybe 2 or 3 seconds there and starting on this action. And then even cutting on that action right there, because we didn't need to see the rest of it. Just cutting on that action, we get we get the activity that he's moving out the door. That's really the point. That's what's driving the story. We didn't need to see the before and the after as much, so you could have really kind of streamlined that a little bit more, and then cutting to the profile. See, that was a nice cut there. In closing his eyes, now, this is really kind of an interesting thing here, because he's closing his eyes. Is he imagining that he's doing this, or is he actually doing it? Right? You know, you're alluding to that for the audience. Now, whether the audience is going to be interested enough, and what I mean interested, not whether they're paying attention, I mean invested enough in your piece at this point, whether they're going to be considering those kinds of things. You know, is this character thinking about doing this, or is he actually doing it? Now, that might have been a point where you might have decided to clarify that or not, to created this sort of thing where he's there, he's looking outside, he's got the sunset. Is it real? Is it not real? Did he go outside, or was he imagining he went outside, what it's going to be like when he's able to go outside again? You know what I mean? That could be a really interesting way to do it. So again, I know there was a lot of little nitpick fine points that I was going over there, but you know, this is really all about just kind of looking at what we can do to refine and kind of hone the piece. It's what we do when we have our edits and we export them. I do this to all my works. When I'm looking at the work, I will go through it just like this, and I will point. I'll stop it and start it and stop it and see where you know, I can refine, or where is it doing what I want it to do, and all of that kind of stuff. And then I'll show it to someone and kind of observe them and how they're reacting. I might have some questions for them that have, you know, not pointed like so much, but you know, maybe some questions like, you know, did he really go outside, or was that in his mind, do you think? Stuff like that. That help me understand if I'm communicating what I want to communicate very well. So that's what I have. I look forward to seeing more of your work as you continue to learn more and more about the beautiful craft of filmmaking. Clearly, you're invested in it, and I want to help you as much as possible to find your visual voice. So, all right, we'll see you later. Bye-bye now.